Beloved soul, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because heaven did not bring you here by accident. There is something happening behind the scenes of your life right now, something your heart has felt for a long time, but something your mind has struggled to put into words, struggled to make sense of, struggled to hold without breaking. You have carried this feeling quietly. You have pressed it down into the silence of ordinary days, tucked it beneath routines and responsibilities, hidden it behind the face you show the world. But it has never gone away. It has never stopped whispering. And today, heaven has a reason for placing this message directly in front of your eyes. Last night, while you were trying to distract yourself from the pain, while you were pretending to be fine in front of everyone else, while you were lying awake in the dark and staring at the ceiling and trying to convince yourself that you were healing, that you were moving on, that you were stronger than this ache in your chest, your soulmate was involved in a private meeting about you. Yes, about you specifically. And what was said inside that conversation carries enough power to shift the very foundation of how you have been seeing this connection. Heaven says you were never supposed to discover this so soon. The timing was not supposed to be now. But your spirit has been crying out for answers with such intensity, such sincerity, such raw and exhausted longing, that the universe could no longer keep this hidden from you. You have spent so many nights in the quiet questioning everything, wondering if they still care, wondering if they still think about you when the world goes silent around them. Wondering if the love you felt between the two of you was something sacred and real, or simply another painful illusion your heart invented to survive loneliness. You have questioned your own perception so many times it has become a kind of punishment. But listen carefully to these words, precious soul, because heaven wants to speak directly to that exhausted part of you right now. What your soulmate confessed behind closed doors has shaken everyone around them. Not in a quiet way, not in a way that passed unnoticed, in a way that stopped the room, in a way that revealed something none of them expected to witness from someone who had worked so hard to appear unbothered, in control, untouched. But before heaven reveals the full truth of what was said, there is something important you must understand about the journey that brought your soulmate to this moment. For a long time, they have been hiding, not from you specifically, but from themselves. They have been hiding from the weight of what they feel, from the depth of what you stirred inside them, from the terrifying vulnerability of loving someone as completely as they love you. They acted distant. They pulled away when you needed them to stay. They became cold at the moments you were most open. They confused you with their contradictions, their silence, their back and forth, their inability to simply say what was already written all over their soul. And you blamed yourself for that confusion. That is one of the things heaven wants to gently correct today, because none of that behavior reflected the truth buried inside their heart. None of the coldness was a measure of their love. None of the silence meant absence. It meant fear. It meant someone running from something so powerful they did not know how to stand still long enough to face it. Because the truth is something far more profound than their behavior ever showed you. You changed them. Not temporarily. Not superficially. Not in the way that a season changes, coming and going with the weather. You changed them in a way that goes beneath personality, beneath habit, beneath every defense they had carefully constructed over years of protecting themselves from pain. You touched something inside them that no one else had ever reached. And the moment you entered their life, something awakened inside them at a level they had no language for, no framework to contain, no strategy to control. Those emotions have been growing quietly ever since. And lately, they have become too heavy for one person to carry alone in silence. That is why the meeting happened. Heaven says there were tears in their eyes while they spoke about you. Not tears performed for sympathy. Not manipulative emotion calculated for effect. Real tears. The kind that rise up from somewhere deep and involuntary, the kind that come when a soul has been holding something far too long and finally the weight of it breaks through every wall they built to stay composed. And the confession that came with those tears is what silenced everyone in that room. Your soulmate admitted that no matter how many times they have tried to move forward, no matter how many mornings they have woken up with the intention of finally releasing you, no matter how much energy they have poured into distraction and distance and the performance of moving on, they cannot erase you from their heart. They said your name still echoes inside their mind every single day, not occasionally, not in weak moments only, every single day, in crowded rooms where they should be present and focused elsewhere, during conversations with other people where they find themselves drifting. During moments they thought they had healed, moments they believed were finally free of you, and then something small and unexpected pulls them back. A song, a smell, the way light falls through a window at a certain hour, and suddenly you are there again, as vivid and present as if no time has passed at all. Your energy follows them everywhere they go. Heaven says someone in that meeting asked them a direct question, not gently. Directly, the way someone asks when they have watched someone they care about suffer in confusion for too long and they finally need the truth to be spoken plainly. They asked, "Why can't you let this person go?" And for a moment that stretched longer than silence usually does, no answer came, because your soulmate could not explain something they do not fully understand themselves. How do you put language around a soul recognition? How do you explain to someone who has never felt it that missing a person goes beyond the physical, beyond memory, beyond the ordinary loneliness of separation? How do you articulate that someone still lives inside you not as a thought but as a presence, a gravity, something you feel even when you cannot name it? You cannot explain it, not completely. And that impossibility is exactly what broke them open in that room. They broke down emotionally in front of people they never intended to be vulnerable with. And that collapse itself was the confession. Because your soulmate has been the kind of person who does not fall apart easily, who keeps things contained, who manages their emotions with discipline. And watching that discipline dissolve completely, watching the walls come down that suddenly, told everyone in that room something undeniable about the depth of what they carry for you. Beloved soul, heaven wants you to receive this truth clearly right now, without filters, without doubt. You were never overreacting. You were never imagining the connection. You were never foolish or naive for feeling what you felt. Every instinct inside you that said this was real, that this mattered, that something sacred was happening between you, was correct. Your intuition did not betray you. It was telling you the truth the entire time. And while you were sitting with your doubts, while you were questioning yourself and wondering if you were simply hoping for something that was not there, they were privately carrying the same emotional storm inside their chest. The same questions, the same ache, the same inability to simply walk away and mean it. But the meeting did not end there. What came next is what truly shook everyone in that room to silence. Your soulmate confessed that they compare every person to you. Every conversation they have with anyone else gets measured unconsciously against the ones they had with you. Every laugh that happens in their presence gets held up against the ease of laughing with you. Every connection they attempt with another person runs into an invisible wall they cannot get past, because the standard their soul has set is you. Not an idealized version of you. You, the specific, real, human presence of you. And nothing reaches that depth. Nothing comes close to filling that particular shape you left inside them. Because your presence left a mark on their soul that cannot be replaced by anything this world has to offer. Heaven says there was one sentence they spoke during that meeting that created absolute silence in the room. A sentence that no one immediately responded to, because Sometimes truth arrives with such weight that the only honest response is stillness. They said, I lost the one person who truly understood me. Beloved, sit with that for a moment. This was not about physical attraction. This was not about chemistry that fades after the first few months. This was about something far rarer and far more irreplaceable. This was about being seen, being known, being understood at a level that most people spend their entire lives searching for and never finding. Your soulmate recognized that with you, they had something that the world does not simply offer again at a later time with a different person. They recognized it too late. And that recognition has been living inside them as a quiet, constant grief ever since. They realized too late that your love was rare. That people who love the way you love do not simply reappear. That what felt ordinary during your time together because it was consistent, because it was always there, was in fact extraordinary. And now that it is gone, now that the ordinary miracle of you is no longer present in their daily life, the absence of it has become impossible to minimize or explain away. And now the fear of losing you permanently, the fear that you will one day genuinely move forward without them, has begun to haunt them in a way they cannot sleep through. Heaven says they are terrified of something specific. They are terrified that you will finally stop waiting, that you will stop carrying hope for this connection. That you will wake up one morning and the longing will simply be gone, replaced by peace and direction and a life that no longer has space for what this was. Because despite everything that happened between you, despite the silence and the distance and the confusion of it all, your soulmate secretly believed, somewhere beneath all the behavior that said otherwise, that your heart would always belong to them. That your love had a permanence they could count on even while they were taking it for granted. But recently they have felt your energy beginning to shift. Something in you has changed. Perhaps you have noticed it yourself. You are becoming quieter in a different way, more focused on your own life, your own healing, your own becoming. The desperate quality of the hoping has started to soften into something more like surrender. And your soulmate has felt that shift the way you feel a change in the weather before the storm actually arrives. They cannot name exactly what changed. They only know that something is different, that the invisible thread between you is under a new kind of tension, and that awareness is shaking them more deeply than they expected. Beloved soul, heaven wants you to understand what your silence has actually accomplished in their life. Your absence forced them into a confrontation they have been postponing for a very long time. When you were present and available and visibly affected by them, they could keep running. They could keep telling themselves the connection would always be there, that there was always time, that they could address what was inside them later. But your silence removed that option. It removed the comfortable distance of knowing you were there waiting. And without that comfort, they were left alone with everything they had been using your presence to avoid. And during that meeting, someone said something to your soulmate that they were not prepared to hear. Someone looked at them clearly and asked, "If you truly love this person, why are you still hiding?" That question went into them like something physical, because they did not have an answer that satisfied even themselves. The fear that has governed them is real. Fear of being fully seen and then rejected. Fear of opening completely and finding that what they offer is not enough. Fear of losing control of their own emotional world by allowing someone else to matter to them as much as you matter. Fear of what it means to need someone the way they need you. These fears did not develop because of you. They developed over years, over old wounds, over a life spent learning that vulnerability leads to pain. But now those fears are beginning to collapse under the weight of something stronger. Because your soulmate has started to understand, slowly and against their own resistance, that the cost of maintaining the hiding has become greater than the cost of the vulnerability they are afraid of. That losing you completely to their own fear would be a wound so much deeper than anything vulnerability could cause. Heaven says they have reached an emotional turning point, the kind that does not return to the same place it came from. Late at night they replay moments between the two of you, not to torture themselves, though it does hurt, but because those moments are the most alive they have felt in longer than they want to admit. They think about specific things they said and how differently they wish they had said them. They think about moments when they pulled away and what would have happened if they had stayed. They sit with the accumulation of all the small choices that added up to this distance, and they carry that weight in the dark where no one can see it. The person who appeared unbothered is not at peace. That is one of the most important truths heaven is delivering to you today. The performance of being fine is exactly that, a performance. And behind it, every night, is a soul that misses you in a way that has not diminished with time but has instead become more specific, more undeniable, more consuming. And heaven says something is shifting in the outer world now as a result of what is shifting internally for them. After that meeting, your soulmate walked away from the room emotionally broken open in a way they have not been in a very long time. The mask that they constructed so carefully over months of pretending has begun to crack from the inside. They can no longer suppress what is true. The effort required to keep it down has finally exceeded what they have the capacity to maintain. You may begin to notice things. Unexpected communication appearing after long silence. Behavior that does not quite make sense from someone who has appeared composed. Indirect gestures that carry an emotional weight they cannot quite bring themselves to make explicit yet. Or perhaps, when the breaking point truly arrives as heaven says it will, something far more direct. A confession you have imagined but told yourself was impossible. A moment of honesty you had stopped believing they were capable of. Because when a soul reaches the level of exhaustion your soulmate has reached, the truth eventually finds its way out. It cannot be permanently contained. It was never designed to be. But heaven also brings you a warning that is just as important as everything else in this message. Do not lose yourself while waiting for another soul to find their way back to theirs. You are not only a chapter in this person's story. You are not only the mirror through which they are being forced to confront themselves. You are a whole and complete soul with a purpose that extends far beyond this connection, far beyond this waiting, far beyond the pain that brought you to this moment. Your soulmate loves you deeply. This bond is real in every sense that matters. But heaven also needs you to remember that your worth does not live inside their recognition of it. It exists independently of whether they say it out loud, whether they come back, whether they finally stop being afraid of what is true. You do not need to earn the love you already deserve. You do not need to make yourself smaller to make this easier for someone who is struggling to be brave enough to meet you honestly. Sometimes the greatest soul connections require transformation before they allow reunion. They require both people to be broken open, rebuilt, stripped of the old patterns that would have eventually destroyed the love even if the love had been given space to exist. And that is exactly the process that is happening now, on both sides of this separation, whether it feels like it from where you are standing or not. Your soulmate is being required to face the parts of themselves they have spent years running from. You awaken that process simply by being who you are, simply by loving the way you love. Simply by seeing them the way no one else ever quite managed to see them. You did not plan to do any of this, but your soul knew, and the impact of your presence on their life goes far deeper than even they have the words to fully acknowledge yet. Heaven says the private meeting was not a coincidence. It was not simply a conversation that happened to turn emotional. It was a turning point. A moment the universe engineered to crack something open that had been sealed too long. And while your soulmate was speaking your name in that room, while their voice changed and their eyes filled and their composure dissolved, one person watching noticed something that no one else missed either. Every single time they said your name, their entire energy transformed. The voice that had been steady became soft. The eyes that had been controlled became full. Every wall that had been carefully maintained collapsed in the space between one breath and the next. Because your soul still has access to the deepest part of them. Not because of manipulation or need or desperation. Because of something that was established between you before either of you fully understood what it was. Beloved soul, this message arrived in your life today for a reason that is not accidental. You have cried enough over this. You have spent enough silent nights questioning whether any of it was real. You have carried enough of the weight of their inability to be honest with you and translated it into something being wrong with you. Heaven wants that to end today. Heaven wants you to receive this clearly and carry it with you. You are unforgettable. Not because you are flawless or because your love was perfect or because everything between you went the way it should have, but because your love reached places inside them that no one else has ever reached, and nothing that has come since has come close to filling what you left behind. Your soulmate knows this. Whether or not they have said it, whether or not they have shown it, whether or not fear has kept them performing the opposite of what is true, they know it. And right now, heaven says they are standing at the edge of a choice their soul has been building toward for a long time. One direction leads deeper into the same hiding, the same fear, the same performance of being fine while carrying something too heavy to hold alone indefinitely. The other direction leads toward the truth, toward honesty, toward the kind of healing that can only happen when someone stops running from the thing they love most and finally turns around to face it. And deep inside them, underneath all of the fear and the conditioning and the years of protecting themselves from being fully known, they already know which direction their soul is asking them to walk. This connection was never ordinary. That is why the separation has carried the specific kind of weight it has. That is why the signs keep appearing. That is why the memories return at unexpected moments with an intensity that has not softened the way ordinary memories do. This bond was written in something that exists beyond the physical world, beyond timing, beyond the limitations of two people who are still learning how to be brave enough to deserve what they have been given. And heaven says something is moving now. The walls are weakening. The feelings that have been buried are rising toward the surface. The truth that has been suppressed is becoming too large and too undeniable to keep beneath anything. Do not let the temporary surface silence convince you that nothing is shifting. Because behind closed doors, behind the conversations no one else is fully aware of, behind the late nights and the quiet tears and the name they keep saying in rooms you cannot see, your soulmate is finally being forced to face the complete truth of what you are to them. And that truth is not complicated. It is not conditional. It does not require more time or more distance or more performance of being unbothered. The truth is simply this: they love you far more deeply than they have ever allowed themselves to fully admit, to anyone, including themselves. And heaven says that is about to change.